All right. Well, first off, has everyone had a reasonable day today? I didn't set expectations. I used reasonable so that I was sure that I'd get at least somebody. I know everyone's tired. It's been a long day, a lot of work today. Thank you for all your work in advancing the companies through the last leg of Creative Destruction Lab. It's a real pleasure to have Ted here. Ted is a CDL fellow who's been on sabbatical this year. And so, Ted, let's get started with just, I want to spend our time on crypto because I think there's a lot happening here. You are right at the frontier, and but just to set the stage so people understand the platform that you start with, if you can give a quick description of Kik.
Sure. So first off, thanks for being here, and thanks for agreeing to be the one to interview me. We've known each other for a while now. So my name is Ted Livingston. I founded Kik over 10 years ago now, so it's been quite a journey for me. Kik is one of the most popular chat apps in the world. People love it because it's less of a utility, it's more of a community. You can go in, create your own identity, and just hang out, connect with people all over the world. People really love it as like a place free of the pressure of social networking. And so today, there's a study released late last year. Our users spend more time in Kik than Instagrams, Snapchats, or Twitters. So it's a super popular app.
And just in terms of the scale, the size of the community?
So it's millions and millions of people show up every day.
Okay. And not that long ago, you introduced Kin. Can you describe what Kin is?
So Kin is a bunch of things, but most simply, Kin is a cryptocurrency. We call it money for the digital world. It originally started because we were a private messenger. We were one of the only private messengers that didn't have a rich corporate parent like iMessage or Facebook Messenger, or didn't have a wealthy parent in the case of Telegram, Pavel there having $500 million to fund it themselves. We actually had this challenge of we have to make money. For a long time, we were able to put that off. We raised venture capital, ultimately raising $50 million from Tencent at $1 billion valuation, making us the only consumer company in Canada to reach that unicorn status. But we needed a way to make money. None of our competitors made money. They were all just funded. And so we started looking at all the different ways to do that. And in 2011, that's when we first learned about Bitcoin. And we were like, wait, this just might be the new business model we've been looking for.
Now, can you explain, so there's some people here who are reasonably sophisticated in crypto, but some people who are just, sorting it out. What can you do with Kin that you can't do with a more traditional payment mechanism, let's say PayPal or something?
So there's a few layers to Kin. We can sort of go through it one at a time. I think most fundamentally from a user's point of view, a consumer, Kik is a community. People are coming in, hanging out, exchanging value with each other. There's lots of interest-based groups. I'm in this group about bonsai trees, and there's experts there. And in most social networks today, you contribute everything to the social network, but you don't get anything back. You might get a like, but that's not worth anything, and these big companies take all the value. So the cool thing about cryptocurrency is we can now roll out a new financial system, a new form of money that people can now actually exchange value with each other. And that value might be 1/10 of a penny. And I might be sending it from me in Canada to some kid in Uganda. And that is never possible before with the traditional payment system. It's only possible now that we can have a global microtransaction financial infrastructure to facilitate this exchange of value in the digital world.
And why wasn't that possible with other forms of exchange?
One of the key breakthroughs of blockchain is for the first time ever, you can move money digitally without trusting a third party. So before, if I want to send money to somebody in Uganda, I got to first give my money to a bank because only they can move money digitally. And I say, hey, TD, could you move my money from me to this guy in Uganda? But that means I have to trust a bank. And if I have to trust a bank, well, there's a lot of regulatory and compliance and processes that bank has to have, and therefore moving that money is very expensive. With the blockchain, for the first time ever, you can move money digitally without needing to trust a third party. So I don't need a bank. We don't need somebody who has a banking license, and we don't need all these pieces of the system that today make the existing system very expensive. So now, for the first time ever, I can instantly send 1/10 of a penny to anybody, anywhere in the world, whenever I want.
Okay, so one unique feature here is the ability to make micropayments very, very small, much smaller than we would have been able to do before, given the overhead costs. A second thing is the way we can bake incentives into the protocol. Can you explain what that is and how it works?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I think on one side, it's great for our users. We get this microtransactions. But what we realize is also great for developers like Kik as a new business model. Something else the blockchain lets you do is guarantee the scarcity of a digital asset. So Bitcoin, for example, there's 21 million Bitcoins, and there will never be more. This was impossible before the blockchain. Before you could have a physical asset, there could never be more, but it's a pain to move around. Or you could have a digital asset, it's easy to move around, but whoever controls it can print more whenever they want. Now with Bitcoin, for the first time ever, you can have both. This creates a fundamentally new business model where we have this scarce asset, there's only so much of it, so if demand for that asset grows, demand goes up, supply stays fixed, economics 101, the value of that asset will go up. And so Bitcoin took this, for example, and turned it into an incentive, what we call the Bitcoin block reward, to incentivize miners to secure the network. What we do in Kin is we say, wait a second, really the incentive should be to developers who get people to use this as a currency, as money in the digital world. And so what we did is we set up the Kin reward engine. We said to any developer in the world, hey, if you get your users using Kin as money, you don't have to take any of those transactions. We'll actually set up a reward system where you'll get paid for that. And that's working. So today, over 45 apps have integrated Kin live in the App Store today. You can go get it with this new global currency, money for the digital world. And in those apps, in the last 30 days alone, over 2 million people have earned Kin, a cryptocurrency, and over 500,000 people have spent Kin, making Kin by far the most used cryptocurrency in the world by mainstream consumers. What we're actually told is about 500 times more usage than any other cryptocurrency by actual mainstream consumers.
And so I think it will help people visualize. In other words, there's a lot of talk about crypto, and there's of course been a significant, media rise and then decline in terms of just the froth around this idea. But relative to many people talking about it, you've actually seen on the inside how users are using it. What are some of the one or two of the most salient use cases of how people are using Kin on the platform?
What's been really interesting, I think blockchain can be used for lots of different things, but for us, the killer application of blockchain is just money 2.0. We look at Bitcoin as money 2.0. We look at what Facebook's trying to do as money 2.0. We look at Kin as money 2.0. In this case, money for the digital world. And what's interesting about this is the behavior you see in the digital world sort of mimics behavior you see in the physical world. So in the physical world, first I need my first job. Maybe that's pumping gas or pouring coffee. We see the same thing in the digital world. So now in apps, I can actually sell my attention or sell my data watching ads or filling out surveys. That's my first job in this new digital world. But from there, I'm like, okay, I got my first paycheck. What can I spend that on? So people are spending that on items in games or special experiences or different expertise. But then where it gets really interesting, this is what gets me really excited, is it really starts to become a new economy. Just like in the physical world, you're like, well, I don't really want to pump gas anymore. What else can I do? And you start to move into more and more specialized labor. We see the same thing happening in the Kin ecosystem. So people started off by just watching ads, but now that it's economy, I want money, I want to earn it, I want to spend it, what else can I offer? And so we see people, for example, in Kik offering expertise. I'm one of the bonsai experts in the world, and you can come into my group, but you got to pay me with Kin. And so it's becoming this whole digital economy. And what's really cool about that is in the physical world, you would know this well, robotics, automation, AI are taking more and more of the jobs in the physical world. We're becoming increasingly digital. This is sort of a whole new world where people are participating, providing value, specializing in labor, building this new economy around this new currency.
And so how does that provide an alternative to what feels like the business model that many consumer apps run on, which is advertising?
This is the thing that's been so exciting to us is we never wanted to do ads. And yet that was the only option. All of our competitors were doing ads and they give everything else away for free. They were basically saying, hey, you come to my service, you contribute, and I'll give you nothing back. Coming back to the physical world, it's almost like back in serfdom where it's like, I'll give you the land, you farm it, I'll feed you at the end of the day, but you get nothing else. And so we didn't want to do that. We believe that users should own their data, they should get paid for their data, paid for their participation, but there was no model. And this is where we have, once again, as Kik, been on the bleeding edge. We first started getting into Bitcoin in 2011. We launched our own currency called Kik Points in 2013. And then we were the first app in the world to launch our own cryptocurrency, Kin, in 2017. And what's been exciting about that is, one, we see all of our competitors start to get into the same thing now 2 years later. Facebook's rumored to be launching a cryptocurrency. Telegram's launching one. Line's launching one. Kakao's launching one. So once again, we are right and we are early. But what's exciting this time is we set up the network effect. So even as these huge companies come in, we set it up to band together the other 99% of developers, where we have more and more developers coming into our ecosystem, adopting us. We're almost like as the euro of the digital world. And so even today, Kik is just 10% of the users in the overall Kin ecosystem. And maybe the third really interesting thing about crypto is it is a new way to organize. So what that means is we can have all these independent companies, but we all have the same incentive. We all own Kin. So we all want the same thing. We want Kin to become more valuable. So if there's some way that I, as the CEO of Kik, can help you, Ajay, as the CEO of your app, help send some of my users to you because maybe they'll use Kin more, and that will create more demand for Kin, and that will make my Kin more valuable and your Kin more valuable, I'll do it. It's simply in my economic interest. And so I think this is the third and most exciting thing to me is it's a fundamentally new way to organize these other 99% of developers to band together in sort of a co-op around a new currency and compete and win together.
Okay, so now something very significant has just happened with regards to this whole enterprise, which is the SEC is suing you. And that is not just, how this plays out is not just going to impact your company, it's going to really impact everybody who's working in this domain. So can you just describe, first of all, the essence of this is effectively a debate on whether Kin is a security or a currency. Currency's okay, security not okay. And so can you explain just both sides of the debate so people understand what it is and then why you are so sure that it is in fact a currency, not a security?
I'll caveat all this with I am not a lawyer, but I have spent a lot of time on this, so I'll do my best. The SEC, the Securities Exchange Commission in the United States, has made it clear that they don't like cryptocurrencies. The chairman of the SEC, Jay Clayton, has said on the record that in his view, every cryptocurrency that has done a token sale, in his view, has done an illegal securities offering. That includes Ethereum, that includes Kin, and that includes thousands of other cryptocurrencies. If cryptocurrencies were found to be securities, it would kill all of their utility. If every time I wanted to buy something from the App Store, I had to go to my broker-dealer and first buy a share of Apple stock, nobody would do it. And so this has the potential to shut down the entire industry. Fortunately, we think they are wrong. This is based on a test from the 1940s. It's actually in Orange Grove, believe it or not, and it's called the Howey test, and it's what defines in Supreme Court law in the United States what is and is not a security. And from the SEC's point of view, what they're saying is, well, people bought this thing, that's true, and they were hoping it would become more valuable. In some cases, that's true. And you were contributing effort, that's true. Well, therefore, it's a security to us. In our view, that's an incorrect interpretation of what happened in the 1940s in the Howey test. In the Howey test, what was happening is William John Howey had an orange grove, and he said, hey, I have an orange grove, I'll sell you a plot, and what I'll do is if you buy the plot from me, I'll farm the plot, I'll take the oranges, I'll sell them in the market, I'll get the money, and I'll return that money to you. And you can expect a 20% profit from that. And the investor says, wow, that sounds pretty great, but how do I know you're going to give me the money at the end? How am I going to know I get the profits? Don't worry, we'll sign a contract. We will be in business together. That is what the Howey test is. It's a test for when you are in business together. We have done thorough analysis of case law, and we think this is much more like a real estate development. There's been case after case in the United States Supreme Court where there was a developer that had a bunch of land in a neighborhood. They said to people, hey, you come into my neighborhood, I'll sell you a piece of land. The person goes, well, I don't even really want to live there. Do you think I could sell it more in the future? The developer says, I don't know, but you can buy the land. Maybe you'll be able to sell it for more in the future. And listen, I'm even going to go build schools and parks and do all these other things in the community because I own a bunch of land in the neighborhood, and I want to make this better for me, and that might also make it better for you. In those cases, those developers didn't even follow through on what they said they would do, and people came back and they're like, whoa, I bought this thing from you, I was expecting a profit, you were supposed to do all this stuff, you didn't do this stuff. That's an illegal securities offering. And what the court found is, no, it's not an illegal securities offering because even though you were hoping for all these things, you and the developer were not in business together. They sold you the land, they walked away, and they did not sign a contract. And that is what cryptocurrencies are doing. It's almost a digital form of land. Yes, they could go up in value. Yes, everybody who has it has a common incentive. You're trying to make it better, and I'm trying to make it better, and we're all trying to make it more valuable. That is the power of it, but that does not make it a security.
All right, so the ultimate decision the SEC makes on that point in terms of whether these cryptos, in particular in this case kin, is a security or not, obviously is going to have ripple effects in many different domains. CDL started a crypto program, blockchain AI program last year under the leadership of Professor Joshua Gans. And a prime reason that we were interested in this is because if you imagine a scenario, let's say before any currency, before any money, one person owns an apple orchard and makes apples, and the other person owns a cornfield and grows corn. And if you're the apple person and you want corn, no problem. You bring your apples over and you trade for corn and you're good to go. But if the corn farmer doesn't want apples, they want a wheelbarrow, then the apple person is out of luck. They have to first go find a wheelbarrow person, trade their apples for wheelbarrows, and then bring the wheelbarrow to the corn person. So currency effectively reduced that friction and enabled us to trade, and in economics terms, we often refer to gains from trade. The gains from being able to trade and currency enabled us to accelerate those gains from trade. And we're interested in this domain because the features of cryptocurrencies enable all kinds of new gains from trade to benefit society in ways that we haven't had before. So whether it's through micropayments, through the incentives that we can bake into the algorithms, that there are a number of types of trades that wouldn't happen in the absence of such currencies that currently don't happen. So the last question I want to ask you, Ted, is we view this domain, and you've seen it firsthand, as not just a medium for exchange for things that we already do, but a medium for exchange that enables innovation to do new types of trades. Where have you seen new trades? You mentioned one which was micro, very small payments. Is there anything else that you're seeing that's new and that's enabled by a kin?
I think it's what I talked about earlier. It's, we're increasingly living in this digital world. That's where we're spending more and more time, and that's where we're contributing more and more value. But today, we're just doing it for likes. And now with kin, we can actually do it for money. It starts off with these global microtransactions, but that's the basis of a new economy. And from there, I'm excited to see just how far it can go.
And for anybody who thinks, wait a minute, why are microtransactions so interesting? That would be like saying, why is an impression interesting? In other words, a single impression feels like it's worth a tiny fraction of a cent, but impressions or advertising online have, of course, been the economic engine of pretty much the biggest internet companies competing in the market today.
And I think, when you look at crypto, I think a lot of people, it's blockchain, not Bitcoin, was a popular thing people said a couple of years ago. I would actually say it's the reverse. I think it's Bitcoin, not blockchain. I think there's a reason why you see Facebook getting into this in a big way and other big companies around the world. Like to us, this is the next mega trend in technology. And so, for example, I wrote a Medium post in March that the title was, Facebook isn't going after Bitcoin, they're going after the dollar. And the opportunity of that in our mind is a $10 to $100 trillion opportunity. I feel very confident, increasingly confident, that 10, 20 years from now, we will have new global reserves currencies, and they will not be the dollar, and they will not be the euro.
Ted, so great to have you back at Creative Destruction Lab.
Thank you.